All right. It's officially the off season. We've got like what 3-4 months before spring training. So, dude, we got to get in shape. What does the off season workout plan look like?
Okay, we're gonna do 5,000 squats, uh, 3,000 pull-ups, 1,500 crunches, and 3 push-ups every
Yikes.
day.
See, I was thinking something more like 30,000 mouse clicks, 500 Twitter refreshes a day, do some vocal warm ups, things like that. Like, I don't know what you're thinking. We don't need to be cut for this, dude.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I got really confused. I thought I was gearing up for free agency.
No, 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 no. That's what we're doing tonight. After tonight, we got to get in shape.
Oh, okay. Now I'm on board.
Hello and welcome back to Getaway Day. As always, I am Shohei Ohtani and he is Yoshinobu Yamamoto. We are here to talk about free agency, the offseason, the trade market, uh, all of the managers that have been hired, the awards that have been coming out this week. We have a lot on the agenda tonight.
Go Buffaloes.
Go Buffaloes. So before we get into talking about our favorite Oryx Buffalo, how have you been, Gowie? We took a week off. Did you use it wisely?
Yeah, I'm champing at the bit. I'm ready to podcast. It's been like 2 weeks, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Because we recorded on Thursday after the World Series and then took
Yep,
last
yep.
week off. And now that we've moved our recording nights to Wednesdays, yeah, it's been about 2 weeks. So,
Yeah. So excited to be talking some baseball, and yeah, we have a ton to catch up on here.
yeah. So, let's just get right into the big topic that everyone's going to be talking about until he signs, and that is the Japanese unicorn two-way superstar Shohei Ohtani. So I think this is the biggest free agency ever, right?
Yeah, I don't think that's a stretch, and I don't really think it's much of a debate, right? There's been like obviously other big free agents in the past, like um, who are the biggest ones that come to mind? Like,
You had Bryce, you had
right?
Manny Machado. I think as far
Yep.
as free agents, those are probably the two. A lot of the other guys that would have been there signed extensions, like Mike Trout, like Giancarlo Stanton. Um,
Aaron Judge is a big one too from last year.
Aaron Judge last year. That's a good point. Um, but then on the pitcher side, Garrett Cole, like he's the guy for
Mhm.
free agent pitchers. So, and this is kind of like having both Judge and Cole in the same free agent market, and you can only get one of them. So,
Yes. Yeah.
yeah, so this is going to be wild. But with that being said, pretty much every single team should, in theory, be in on Shohei Ohtani. Is that correct to say?
Well, every team wants him. Even the teams we were talking prior to this about what teams would actually not want Shohei on their team, and the idea of like finding a fit for him doesn't really exist because he fits every team perfectly. Like there's no way you don't try to make room for him and fit him on the team. Obviously, we're going to talk a little bit more in depth about what actually makes sense from both sides, like what's realistic.
Yeah,
But
and
yeah,
and
every team wants him.
I think the clarifying note to make on what you just said, he fits from a baseball perspective on every team.
Yes.
That's the key. It's the other things that kind of give us the idea of who's actually going to be able to possibly get Shohei, who's completely out, who's not even going to try. And I think that's kind of what we want to try and break down. I mean, we sat here on what was that Monday, I think, and went
Monday.
through
Yep.
all 30 teams and tried to list out kind of who is in each category, just trying to figure it out. And we kind of came up with 6 categories. And I think the easiest way to do it is to just right off the bat say who is out on Ohtani. Period.
Mm-hmm.
No ifs, ands, or
Yeah.
buts. There is no shot from either he won't want to go there for a team like the Oakland A's, um, or a team that has already said, we can't afford him. We're not even going to try in the Chicago White Sox. So, who all is in that out tier that really stands out to you? Um, I guess is like just a straight up obvious they're out. I think I probably just
I
named the
mean,
two. So maybe who's
I
the
mean to
less
be honest,
obvious?
all of these teams in this tier that we have are not surprising because they're not big spenders, and that's kind of like the recurring theme among all these teams. Like we have Kansas City, Oakland, Cincinnati, Chicago White Sox, Miami, Cleveland, Milwaukee, Pittsburgh, Minnesota. Minnesota is the only one of these teams in recent times that has actually spent big, but they're kind of in a bad situation right now because of their TV Diamond Sports Group situation where they've already publicly stated that they're going to be cutting payroll this year. So it's like if you're cutting payroll, you're obviously not signing Otani.
Yeah, they said that they're going to cut about $40 million in payroll, which actually coincides with the amount of money that they get from Diamond Sports Group for their TV rights every year. Just a quick little aside, we'll go into this probably next week, maybe. But Diamond Sports Group has basically already said that 2024 will be the final season that they are going to be airing TV broadcasts for any of the 12 teams that they currently have the rights for. And it's likely that they're actually going to drop one of those 12 before the season begins. So who that team is, we don't know yet. It could be Minnesota. That could be why they're cutting payroll now. But a lot of those teams are losing a large source of money, and you might see a lot of them just cut back, even though it doesn't seem like they should. So that's kind of what it feels like is happening with Minnesota right now. Does that seem fair, Gowie?
I would say so. And the 40 million also coincides with Shohei Otani's salary for next season, maybe.
Probably a little higher than that would be his
Yeah.
salary. Um,
Yep.
so pretty much everybody outside of those, what is that? One, two, eight teams? Is that 9 teams? 9 teams. So there are 21 teams that have a shot at Shohei Ohtani that should make some kind of offer. Be it some terrible offer, doesn't matter. They should be just talking to the guy, calling him, saying, hey, we would love to have you. Here's what we can do. And there's a bunch of teams that are still incredibly unlikely. They should be calling, but there's no shot that they get Ohtani. Those are teams like Colorado, Detroit, the Nationals, Arizona, and the Padres. And some of those kind of make sense. Like Colorado, they spend a lot of money, they suck. Why? Like they don't really have a clear path to winning now. And that's kind of a big thing that Shohei has said that he wants is he wants to win now. He's been on the Angels. Why would he want to go through that yet again on a different team? So that kind of rules out Colorado and maybe Detroit and Washington. Arizona and San Diego are a little bit of a different story. Like both of those teams have a legit shot. Arizona just went to the World Series. The Padres have been a good team that has been spending a lot of money the last couple of years. They actually have two big things now. So the first was that they actually had to take out a $50 million loan just to pay their players last year. So if they go and sign Shohei for another like 45 to 50 million a year, that's going to be financially restrictive to them. And now, yesterday, their owner also passed away. So they're in a little bit of an ownership change. It'll be interesting to see how that affects the team moving forward. Does the whoever takes over the ownership? I don't know if it's going to be his wife or one of his kids, or if the team sells. Do you know that, Gabby?
I do not know.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see what decisions they make if they continue down the path that was it Peter? What's his name?
Peter Seidler.
Peter Seidler has been setting the team on. So Got anything
Yeah,
about?
I mean, the Padres are always like a wild card to me. Like I understand why we put them here, but AJ Preller is kind of crazy. Like he finds ways to be really creative about stuff. And I mean, yeah, they took out a loan, but apparently other teams do that as well. So maybe it's not as shocking as it sounds. Um, I will point out that like Detroit and Washington, you almost like feel like they should be going in for it because they are actually up and coming teams. Like, this would be the perfect way to like really kick your rebuild into gear, but it has to go both ways, and I just don't see how being competitive right now wouldn't be one of Otani's like key priorities as he makes this decision because this is legitimately the prime of his career. He's not going to be trying to wait a year or two before a team gets good. Like, so it's hard to count any of the non contenders as a big player for his services.
Yeah. And that's kind of what brings us into the next category here, which is the teams that are a bit more likely. And that's going to be most of the rest. So that's like your Houston, your St. Louis, the Angels getting him back, Baltimore, Toronto, Tampa, Atlanta, Philly, Texas. And all of these teams could make a very good pitch to Shohei Ohtani, and they could get his services. It doesn't really seem like it's all that likely for a bunch of various reasons. Some teams like Houston or St. Louis would be kind of hitting and surpassing by a lot their like record high team payrolls. With the Angels, does Otani really want to go back to the place that has just kind of wasted him for the last 6 years? And so that's kind of where you end up with a lot of these teams. It's like they could do it, they would obviously be a better team for it, but they all have they're all reaching their upper limit either financially
Yeah.
from what they've ever done, so it doesn't seem like they would be willing to go up above and beyond, or it's a team like the Angels where they're not as competitive, but he's familiar with the team. Mike Trout's still there. They have a new manager. They could go out and get some more pieces. Like there is a world in which Shohei is convinced to go back to Anaheim.
Yeah, I think this group is actually I think about them in like two categories. They're either the teams that are not traditionally like the biggest spenders in the league, and then also the teams that are just like strapped for cash at this point. They're like up against their limit. Like a team like Toronto already has over 200 million committed for next year. It's going to be hard. It's going to be a hard sell to have them like approaching 300 million maybe by the time they make other additions, and there's other needs that teams have. Like Otani fixes a lot of problems on your team, but he's only one guy. Still
Yeah.
baseball.
And one guy who's not going to be pitching this next year.
Right.
So,
He's just a DH. Like don't want to minimize his impact and his talent and anything, but like he only does the one thing.
yeah. And so for next year, you have to go out and also get a pitcher. After that, yeah, Otani is hopefully going to be back and pitching well. So, um, the one other team in kind of that a bit more likely category that I think is interesting is the Rays, because the Rays, they're not going to go out and give Otani like a 11-year, 12-year, $500 million contract. But what they could do is give him like a 2-year, $110 million contract. Like that seems like something they might offer, because they don't really like committing long term. They don't like committing a ton of money. But I think even Tampa would look at Shohei and go, "This guy could do some really big things for us, especially as we're getting our new stadium and we're doing all this stuff." So there is a world where Tampa could offer him something like that. Supposedly, it's something he's open to, but it
Yeah.
doesn't
I mean
feel as
that
likely as some of
they
these others.
yeah, I feel like they are one of the most hesitant teams to go and expand their payroll, and they have given up like big contracts, so we can't say like they don't ever do that. They just gave Wander Franco a 11-year deal,
Yeah.
and like Evan Longoria back way back when had a long deal, and um, But I just the fact that they've been mentioned in Tyler Glass now rumors as a way to cut payroll because there's no like good reason to trade a talent like that when you're contending team.
Yeah.
So
So unless their plan is trade him and then try and sign Ohtani, but it doesn't feel like those two go together.
it's not a race move, no.
So our next tier is I wish you guys could see this written out. It's NY. N and then WHY. And that is both of the New York teams. And they seem like they should be top of the top, like destinations for Ohtani. They can both spend a ridiculous amount of money. They have that money. They seem incredibly motivated to spend that money right now. But why would Ohtani want to go to either of the New York teams? Like,
Main reason I can think of is like for the star like appeal, but like he doesn't seem like he cares about that. I don't if I were to like be ranking his criteria for making the decision, like I would assume like I'll never know what his actual list is, but I don't think like being a superstar in New York is like on his on his list at all.
well, and the biggest thing for me is both of those teams have some major red flags right now. In the Bronx, that red flag is Brian Cashman. He's just been going like scorched earth against everybody in the organization. Hal Steinbrenner said it was a terrible year and they're not happy about it. Whatever. 3 hours later, Brian Cashman says that this is a really good Yankees team and he's really proud of it. We had a good season. Then, um, like with the Giancarlo Stanton, like he just sat there and trashed Giancarlo Stanton and basically said that he's guaranteed going to get hurt, yada yada yada. Stanton's agent basically came out and said, "This is a place that you have to have incredibly tough skin and just forget because they're going to sit there and tear you down when you play for them." Like it. There's no good reason for that. Why would someone like Ohtani want to subject himself to that? And then on the Mets side, like this is a Mets team that is definitely different than it's been in the past. But right now, they still haven't quite found their identity. They tried to go big money with veterans, and it didn't really work out. Now they're kind of resetting for 2 or 3 years down the road. So,
Yeah.
like, if you want to win now, it doesn't feel like the Mets is the move. If you want to not be abused by your own GM, it doesn't feel like the Yankees are the move. Like,
Yeah.
it just,
I mean,
I,
I guess like you made the cases against the Mets and the Yankees, but the case for them is that the Yankees are highly motivated to win right now because they're coming off a bad season and they just gave Aaron Judge a massive contract and he
yeah,
is now going to be like 32. This is like this could be like the beginning of the decline of Aaron Judge. And they just gave him a 9-year contract. Like the purpose of that is to win when he's good still and not struggling and hitting the rough part of his career that unfortunately I think is going to happen. Like you have to win now with Cole and Judge like at the top of their game. And you can do that if you add Otani to the team. Like that's going to make a huge difference for the Yankees, I think. And
yeah, absolutely. Um, but
and then on the Mets side, like just a year ago at this time, we were all like getting ready for the Otani sweepstakes. And everyone would have said, yeah, the Mets are absolutely going to be in it because of the way they behaved the last couple of years in free agency, signing a whole bunch of free agents, and then Cohen kind of changed his tune a little bit mid-season when they went out and traded Scherzer and Verlander, and kind of they're taking a step back, just like you said, and they're probably doing the right thing long term, but it's not as exciting. It,
yeah,
it if Cohen felt like it, maybe he doesn't think it's the right business move or baseball move or whatever, but like he could blow the rest of the teams out of the water with his offer potentially. and that's what makes the Mets maybe attractive.
Yeah, absolutely. But there's 5 other teams we haven't really talked about, and I'm gonna throw them all together. There is kind of one differentiator between them, and those 5 teams are the Dodgers, the Mariners, the Giants, the Cubs, and the Red Sox. The main difference between some of these teams, Chicago and Boston, haven't really had as much hype, haven't really had as much rumors about it or around them. But for all intents and purposes, they're kind of in the exact same spot as the Dodgers, Seattle, and San Francisco. Um, all 5 of these teams have money to spend right now. All 5 of these teams could be contenders. San Francisco is the farthest away from that, but San Francisco has also been trying to take swings and then missing and whiffing on some of these massive free agents the last couple of years. I don't think Farhan wants to do that again. The Dodgers cut their payroll last year to get under the luxury tax threshold, so they've reset that. So they can go and spend whatever they want, and they're at the lowest tax level. Seattle is an up and coming team, and they seem to have the best geographic and cultural fit for Shohei, while also being really motivated to try and win right now with Cal Raleigh, with Julio Rodriguez, with Castillo and Kirby and all these guys. So all 3 of those teams, they've been rumored to be the top bidders, and it kind of feels like that makes sense. But Chicago and Boston should not be forgotten about.
Yeah, yeah. I think all these teams are for real. I mean, Boston and Chicago feel like they should be in the same boat, but Boston recent like spending habits make me think that they're kind of on the periphery here. They should do it. They should go sign them, but like they've acted more small market than anything in recent years, other than like the Devers extension. Um, and I think that's like an ownership problem. The Cubs seem like they're almost headed in an opposite direction as Boston with with their recent move of hiring Craig Counsell with really solid state of a lot of things. Like everything seems like it's trending in the right direction for the Cubs, and they need the big star because they're kind of missing that right now.
Yeah, and now that Bellinger's a free agent, they need someone to replace him if they don't get him back. But that actually kind of brings up a really good question. So we've kind of talked about the teams that are, or like how they're probably going to be on the Ohtani sweepstakes. So some of those teams are probably just going to say, we probably don't have a shot. Let's go start negotiating with these other players that are on the market. And then the ones that are in on Ohtani, whoever whiffs, is probably going to be in on the next big guys. So who are those other big free agents?
Yeah, so Cody Bellinger, I think pretty clearly the number 2 hitter in this offseason free agent class. After that, there's a major drop off. So, um, I mean, like, I even see like a major step between Bellinger and Otani. As good as Bellinger has been and could be, but he's like an extremely risky free agent. He just
Yeah.
had a great season, but he's coming off 2 really, really bad seasons before that. So like who knows what you're gonna get out of this guy. He seems like one of the most like scary free agents that's
Yeah,
like
because
so high up a list.
there's so much that says this dude is legit because he won the Rookie of the Year, he won an MVP the following year, and then this past season was fantastic. But those 2.5, 3 seasons in the middle, yikes. So, like, how many teams are actually going to be willing to go after Bellinger? I feel like most of them are going to want Cody Bellinger. Like, just the upside there is insane. And he's proven that it wasn't a fluke when he won the MVP. Like, he's definitely capable of that.
Hmm.
It's just, can he stay consistent? But then after him, like you said, it's a big drop off. But then the next 3 guys are what? Matt Chapman, Jorge Soler, and Jammer Candelario, as far as hitters are concerned.
Yeah, I mean it's a little tough.
Yeah.
It's not a good class of hitters, especially the pitchers. We can talk about separately, but like hitting wise, hopefully you're not putting all your eggs in the Otani basket because you're likely to be disappointed, and then there's nothing on the free agent market to help you a whole lot.
Yeah. But if you want a pitcher, you're in luck. So
Yes.
the pitcher free agent market is stacked at the top. I mean the top four guys are probably I don't want to say in order like I think this is probably the order that I would put them in given what we know about them, but there's one guy that pretty quickly you'll realize why I think he might actually be the top guy. But it's probably Aaron Nola, Blake Snell, Yoshinobu Yamamoto, and then Sonny Gray, Jordan Montgomery for your top five pitchers. And like all of those guys are really, really good. Nola is a workhorse. Snell is really, really dominant when he's on, but he's streaky. Then you got Yamamoto coming from Japan. He is phenomenal. Like, if you think Kodai Senga was good this year, if you think not Masataka, Masahiro Tanaka, there we go. If you think Masahiro Tanaka was good, just wait until Yamamoto gets over here because he is awesome. He had, I think we were talking, he has a 171 ERA in the Nippon Professional Baseball League over the last 7 years, and he's 25 years
172.
old.
Yeah, he's 25, and that's the part that makes him like all the more attractive because like if you compare him just to this year's class of starting pitchers, which is it's good, but it's not great. Even if you go back to 22, you had other really good starting pitching free agents like um, Carlos Rodon. I mean, maybe he was the only big pitcher last year, but like
Verlander.
yeah, Verlander. But usually when pitchers are reaching free agency, they're a little bit older. Like Nola's 31. Um, I got
Yeah,
the list right here. Yeah,
Jordan Montgomery's about 30. Blake Snell's about
he's
31 or
31. Snell's 31. Nola's 31. Sonny Gray's 34. Eduardo Rodriguez is 31. I mean, they're all 30 plus, and this guy's got 5-6 years of less arm wear on him, and he is like he's obviously an unknown. He hasn't pitched against major league competition, but from everything we know about this guy, he's like an elite talent and he's
well,
a special free agent.
and he absolutely dominated the WBC. So he did get to go up against major league talent, just not all at one time. Like he didn't face an
Mhm.
entire lineup of major league guys, except for when he faced Team USA or Team DR or Puerto Rico. Hey, there's a
Yeah,
couple
I mean,
teams. There's
there
a
there are a
couple
lot of
teams.
like full major league teams. Yeah,
Yeah, but um, but yeah. So that's kind of what we're looking at for free agency. Um, I think the thing that's going to make this offseason interesting though is not necessarily the free agents like it is like with Ohtani, with Belli, these pitchers, Yamamoto especially. Like those are going to be the main stories, but like all the teams that miss out on them with the lower quality of hitters on the free agent market, probably going to see quite a few trades this year too, aren't we?
yeah. I think like you kind of have to, right? If the free agent market's not robust, you still have the same holes probably, and you've got to fill them somehow, and that will just hopefully lead to a more active trade market, and especially those teams at the top. Those are the ones that I'm really looking at because there's just not enough to go around in terms of like the 5 win players that you can find. Who in the entire free agent class, Otani aside, would you say is going to be like a 5 win player next year for sure? There's no one. In my opinion, there's not one guy in this entire class that's that type player.
Yeah, I mean, I would say Nola is maybe number two.
I would say Bellinger has obvious upside to reach that, but I would not bank on it. I wouldn't bet
Well,
on that
and that's
happening.
that's why I think Nola's number two, because of his consistency and just how much he pitches. It's a lot easier to rack up pitching WAR whenever you're pitching 200 and some innings versus
That's fair.
160, 180. So
Yeah, that's true. So then, like, brings up the question: are there 5 WAR players available in trade? And number one answer to that is Juan Soto. We already talked about the Padres' like perceived financial issues at the moment, and it's already been reported a lot that it's 100% in quotes likelihood that Soto gets traded, and it makes sense because he's going to cost them around 30 million in his last year before free agency. They're still wanting to be competitive, but to maximize what they can get back at this point, you almost want to trade him in the offseason.
yeah, and that 100% certainty in quotes was from Buster Olney the day after the team obviously said we're not trading him, we're keeping him.
Yeah.
So how much of that is AJ Preller being truthful with the media, and how much of it is him trying to drive up the price for Juan Soto?
Yeah, I mean, but there's like one. I have like one nit to pick about this thing that GMs say every year, and that one thing is we have Pete Alonso is expected to be our first baseman this year. Like, okay, yeah, that's true right now in this instant because he hasn't been traded, but it's not. It doesn't mean anything in my opinion. Like when they
Yeah,
say
it's like
that.
he's still number one on the depth chart until he's not on the depth
Yeah,
chart.
exactly. Yeah.
So
So like Juan Soto is a Padre until he's not one day. So I
yeah,
do you think he's going to get traded this offseason?
kind of feels that way.
Yeah,
I don't I
that's
don't
where I am.
know I don't know what he will get, or like get them in return. Like it's not going to be what they gave up to get him. It's not going to
It's
be
not even
James
going to be
Wood,
close.
Robert Hass.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like it's probably what, one pretty decent prospect in a major league guy.
Yeah, yeah. I legitimately like there's no 1 year till free agency guys that fetch like big returns. It's really only the guys that have like multiple years of control, younger players. I mean, Soto fit like checks all those boxes, but he's only got a year left, and there's pretty much zero chance that he would sign an extension
Yeah.
before he reached free agency. So that's factored into the trade cost.
Yeah. So there are a couple more guys in the trade market that I see that are probably in that 5 WAR category though. There's actually two that I see, and they're both pitchers. And that is Tyler Glasnow, assuming he's healthy,
Mhm.
5 win guy from Tampa. He's awesome. He's absolutely lights out when he's on the mound. The other guy is from a team that sounds like it's actually kind of taking a step back and might blow it up, and that is the Milwaukee Brewers. Now that they've lost Craig Counsell, um, and they're about to lose their TV deal, it sounds like they're planning on cutting back. They have said, quote, everyone is available. So Corbin Burns has 1 year left. He is probably the best pitcher in the National League. Like, he didn't win the Cy Young this year, but he's probably the best pitcher in the National League. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, he's definitely up there. Like I would say he had a little bit of a down season. It wasn't like the Cy Young season he had a couple of years ago, but he's a great pitcher. Like
Yeah. And so those are the other two guys that I think are going to be, especially for teams that don't get um, Yamamoto, don't get Ohtani, don't get Nola or Snell. I think those guys are probably going to be targets before guys like Sonny Gray, Jordan Montgomery. Like, nothing against Jordan Montgomery or Sonny Gray. They're both great pitchers. I want them both on the Cardinals. But Glasnow and Burns are definitely a step above those guys. So it's like, if you can get them, get them. Upgrade there if you can make a trade. And then, like, Jordan Montgomery is he pitched like an ace here in the second half this year for Texas after he got traded from the Cardinals. But ultimately, he's probably a number 3, I think.
Yeah, I would say so.
So
Yeah, he's
that's kind of what he's been
like,
throughout his career, and like he fills that role really well. But
yep,
he's not the ace that you get in Corbin Burns. He's not the ace you get in Tyler Glasnow. So
yeah. Glasnow's only thing is like staying on the field and pitching a lot of innings. Like you might be surprised by this, but maybe you won't. His uh his best WAR season was 2019 when he only pitched
3.5.
he only pitched 2.5 only,
Oh,
and he only pitched 60 innings that year. He was absolutely lights out, but every other year he actually maxed out in innings pitched this year, and he only threw 120. So this is like
really?
a very not durable pitcher.
I mean, his nickname is Baby Giraffe for a reason.
Poor guy.
Yeah. But now, what other guys do you see on potentially on the trade block? Hitters
Um,
or pitchers? Up to you.
I can't think of any other like huge names that would get moved. I feel like Yelich is an interesting one if the Brewers really do blow it up, because Yelich is a really good player. Um, he's got a lot of years left on his deal, but yeah, I could see a team going for that because that's like one way to get an impact overall player.
What about for 1 year at Pete? Just get a whole bunch of power because like the Phillies were kind of saying that Castellanos would be available on the trade market, but that's probably not likely to happen. Granted, or given that he's got 3 years and 20 million, or 3 years and $60 million left on his deal, but Pete Alonso has 1 year of ARB left. So a team that would have been in on Castellanos maybe to help get some pop could potentially be after Pete Alonso.
Yeah, absolutely. He's a big name that I don't know why I didn't bring him up, but yeah, I think I think the Mets would be smart to move him because he's like, unless they extend him, they should extend him or trade him at
Yeah,
this point.
and honestly, they should extend him. Period. But then if they don't, trade him.
Yeah, pick a path.
Yeah. Uh, so that's kind of a lot of the big players that are potentially going to be on the move this year, but that is not all of the on-field personnel changes that we're going to see coming into next year. We've had what 8 managerial opens this offseason or openings this offseason. 7 of them were expected. One of them was not. Um, but yeah, so we had a couple guys that took new jobs, and I'll start with the ones that I don't think we're going to spend too much time talking about. We've already talked about Bob Melvin. He took a job with San Francisco. He'll be leading the Giants. Joe Espada was promoted by the Astros. Um, Carlos Mendoza was hired by the Mets. Stephen Vogt, former catcher, is going to be a first-time manager for the Cleveland Ians. Um, and then probably the two that we'll spend just a little bit of time on, Ron Washington, hired by the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim.
I did not
Did
expect this to happen. Like I've been talking to you about this for a few years now. Like, is Wash ever going to get another job? You were saying no, he's too old, and Angels decided to do it. And Wash is like one of the most beloved baseball people, I feel like, and
yeah,
I'm happy he got another job. It'll be very interesting to see if he can kind of change the culture of Angels baseball and coach up the young players and stuff. And actually, like, that's one of the Angels' biggest issues, right? It's like coaching up their young players. They never seem to like get a lot out of their draft picks, and
and I
their
think
players like
that's
stall out almost. And he's like the perfect manager for like young players.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of the things that Wash is best at is working with these young players and teaching the fundamentals. I mean, he's
Yep.
literally been like
He's
the
coached
infield
like
coach for
yeah,
the
he coaches like yeah, he was a third base coach and does all the infield work. And there's just scores of players that have credited him with like making them into elite defenders. Like you can think of recent examples like Dansby Swanson, Austin Riley. These guys were like literally liabilities when they first made it to the majors, and they turned into not just like okay, they turned into like elite defenders, like well above average guys.
yeah. And Wash has always been that dude, which is why I always question why in the world was Nelson Cruz in right field in game 6 of 2011?
That's a great point. That is a fantastic point. Like that guy should never have been anywhere near a baseball glove.
No. No, that man should just they should tape the bat to his hands and not take it off till the game's over. Period. No ifs, ands, or buts. If they're
Yeah,
playing
that's
in a
on
National
Wash.
League park, screw it. He's not on the field that day.
Oof.
Don't
Yeah.
even put him in a jersey. But
Yeah. So
oh
I don't
well.
know. Like it'll be interesting. Like it's very likely that Wash is a little bit of an old school manager, right?
Yeah,
He also hasn't done it in a while. I think he last managed in 2014, and
it sounds about right.
things have changed. Obviously, he's been around the game and stuff, but he hasn't like necessarily been involved in like the decision making of like a modern baseball team in today's baseball. So I don't know like how it's gonna go. I mean, like a guy like Dusty is like kind of the comp that I'm thinking of here because he came back really old too, just like Wash is here, and he kind of adapted. He was able to like take the help of the front office that's really good at what they do and mix it with like his old school methods. And I feel like that obviously was successful with the Astros. They won the World Series.
Yeah. Which I small thing I'd like to point out. I'm surprised Wash was signed by the Angels. I really thought that the Astros were going to pick up Wash. I didn't think that they were going to promote Joe Espada. Like I had been coming into this offseason thinking Ron Washington, manager of the Houston Astros, and then that didn't happen. So we'll see what he could do with the Angels if 80 to 110 games of Trout and Ron Washington as the manager can help get that team in shape. But I think he'll be really, really good with like Zach Neto and Nolan Chanuel and
Yeah.
Mickey Moniak and a lot of these younger guys. I think he's the right dude. Um, so we'll see. And the coaching staff that he's kind of put behind him, that's going to be interesting. So I think
What is
Chili
it?
Davis is back is the hitting coach. Torrey Hunter is going to be one of the coaches. Let me see if I can find this because it was really interesting. Uh, Angels coaching staff. Ron Washington. Uh, okay. From Sports Illustrated, Wash is 71.
That's what I said, man. He's old.
Okay, so the staff is supposedly going to feature names such as Chili Davis, Torrey. Oh, here we go. Chili Davis, hitting coach. Torrey Hunter, first base coach. Eric Young, senior, third base coach. Clint Hurdle, bench coach. Ryan
No
Goings,
way,
infield coach.
Clinton Turtle.
Clint Hurdle's coming back, dude. Oh, that's gonna be wild. I'm gonna make fun of
He
him every
must
time I see
be.
him. He's
He's
got to
getting
be
up
like
there in
90,
age
right?
too. Yeah, right.
Clint Hurdle.
I think you spelled that wrong. It's Clinton Turtle.
Sorry, Clint Turtle. 66. He's younger than Wash.
What? All
Yeah,
right. He
apparently.
just looked really old when he was on the Pirates.
Yeah. But, but yeah, so Ron Washington is going to be really interesting over there in Anaheim. So I'm just going to sit back and go ahead. There's one more.
All right. Craig Counsell, new manager of the Chicago Cubs. This one came out of nowhere, honestly. Like no one knew that this was going to happen, and then it was
Including
just like
David
breaking news,
Ross.
including David Ross, who like got a visit from Jed Hoyer like the day of in Florida to like tell him the bad news. Like feel bad for him. Like this is a very cutthroat move by the Cubs, and it like honestly sent like reverberations through baseball because like there's not a lot of precedent for this type of thing happening with the manager under contract actually just like being given the vote of confidence like Ross is our guy at the end of the season and then getting replaced like there's that hasn't really happened like people point to the Joe Madden thing but that was a little bit different because Joe Madden was like known to be looking around like I don't know. It's just a little bit different of a situation than this one.
Yeah.
And Craig
But yeah.
Counsell in his intro press conference, he just clearly was looking for a different type of challenge. Seemed like the Brewers were not going to be like where he wanted to be, and um, this thing with the Cubs came together like super fast. It happened basically starting on November 1st when his contract ended. He started talking with Jed that day, and within like 5 days, it happened. And you know, he had a couple other interviews with Cleveland and New York, and they had to keep this totally under wraps because of the Ross situation, where he was already under contract, and if it hadn't worked out, then it never would have been public because you know you can't like be sneakily looking for a manager on the side um, and then like try to bring the other guy back if, if he knows what's up.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, huge move for the Cubs because they are like looking for any place they can to upgrade and doing it at a very high cost, I guess, relative to the rest of the manager market. Because Craig Counsell is now going to be making well more, well, way more money than anybody else in the league right now.
More than twice the next highest paid manager. He
Yep.
reset the market for manager contracts.
Yep.
Like
And not
it's
to mention that they're still paying Ross's like $3.5 million contract or whatever. So
yeah.
and they're paying like over 11 million in managers for 24. So I guess I'll ask you, like, is a manager worth that much? Like, do they
Honestly,
matter?
yes, yes, they do.
It's really if
Um,
you think about it like in terms of equating it to a player, there's some relievers that make about like 8 million a year. That's not a crazy number for like a solid reliever.
no,
And
and
you don't think like a manager adds at least a win if they're really good?
I'm actually going to come at this from a different side. I'm not going to come at it from necessarily what they give you on the field. I mean, that's huge. You're spot on. But I'm actually going to come at it a little bit more from the standpoint that the manager is the scapegoat for the team. Period. He is essentially the commissioner of the team. What Rob Manfred, what Bud Selig, what all them are for the ownerships or the ownership groups for all 30 teams, they're basically there to talk to reporters and basically take the blame for all the bad stuff that happens. That's kind of what a manager does too. And you see what Manfred makes, you see what Roger Goodell makes in the NFL. They make ridiculous amounts of money because they're basically there to take the abuse. Like they do other stuff too. And obviously Counsell is a fantastic on-field manager. He makes really good decisions with his bullpen, with when to pull his pitchers. And he's really, really smart and is definitely going to win them some more games. Um, but I mean, managers deserve it just from the straight up abuse that they take from the media, from their front office. Like whenever something goes wrong, it's their fault or they're accountable for it, even though they may not be responsible for it. So
Yeah, yeah, they have to take the brunt of it, and And Council's been doing it for a long time, and he's very adept at kind of protecting his players. And he's the best of both worlds, right? He's you know driven by analytics, but he's also a players manager, and he's a guy that played the game, commands a lot of respect from his players, and he year after year with the Brewers, we saw he literally got way more than anyone expected. At some point, we stopped saying like, "Oh, we're surprised by the Brewers," because that's just what they did, and a lot of that was because of Council. Like, it's hard to not give him a lot of the credit for how well they did.
Yeah.
Um,
But I think now we could say that the Brewers aren't just going to randomly do that anymore. And it makes me happy.
that does make me happy. Yeah.
It really ticks me off that you guys got Council. That's going to suck for the rest of forever. But for right now, it's kind of cool. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
all
So
right.
hopefully, I mean, the other part of it is like obviously Jed had to say some of the right things. It wasn't like you like to think that it's not just the money is the reason Craig Counsell decides to do this. Like maybe Jed laid out the vision in a way that made sense to Counsell because he could have gone to New York. He could have done something else. He could have taken a year off, but
I
he decided,
guarantee I guarantee he could have got this money from Steve Cohen. The same contract. I bet you it would have happened.
exactly, yeah. No, yeah, it absolutely could have. And that gives me hope because I was never quite sure if Jed was the guy to sell the vision of the Cubs. And clearly he's got some stuff up his sleeve, and that's why it makes sense that the Cubs are in the conversation for big trades, a big free agent signing, because Council doesn't sign with the team that's years
That's gonna,
away. Like
yeah, that's
he's
gonna be in
trying to
the
win.
exact same position. Like,
Yeah, he was sick of the Brewers doing the same thing year after year. The Cubs have seemingly many more ways that they can build a very good baseball team that will last.
yeah, absolutely. And honestly, just from the other standpoint, of just like Ross, like Ross did a really really good job for a first time manager. I don't mean anything bad about this to him, but he definitely had his flaws and he definitely
Oh
did
yeah,
cost the Cubs quite a few wins over the last couple years. And I looked at him and kind of thought this he doesn't really seem like the guy that fits for this version of this team. Like whenever it was Riz, KB, Javi, and it was kind of the veterans that were getting close to free agency, that felt like the time for Ross because the players kind of just could do it themselves.
yeah,
Um,
veteran team.
yeah,
So first
but
time manager, it's fine for them.
yeah, but then once the team got younger, you started seeing his flaws a little bit more, which is why I think it's a really good move by Jed Hoyer to do this now.
Yeah,
So
I think Ross. It's probably going to be forgotten, but he has some very good strengths. Like he was very good at keeping the clubhouse together. People really liked him and respected him. But from an X's and O's perspective, on field stuff, he definitely has some improvement. And I think
yeah,
he's gonna get another managerial job in a year or something, and he's probably gonna come out better for it. But he's a new guy. It takes time to grow into the job and get better at it. You have to get a bunch of reps.
honestly, what I think would be kind of interesting, and it's not going to happen. And if I were Ross, I wouldn't want this to happen either. But I would come back in as a bench coach for someone else for this year and then next year go get one of the manager jobs so that you kind
Yeah.
of get that different mindset from a different manager. You bring your strengths to the table because he is great at keeping the clubhouse together. Honestly, him and Stephen Vogt I think would be a really interesting 1-2 punch, like
Did you know
because
that
Stephen Vogt's learning on the job too. So
did you know Ross was offered the Yankees bench coach job and he said no?
I did not.
He said he wants to come back as a manager. So I mean that's his choice. But
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think it would be good for him to go as a bench coach for 1 year because there's not any more managerial openings this year other than Milwaukee and the Padres still have not got theirs. Milwaukee's
Wouldn't that be
expected to
something?
promote their bench coach, but that kind of leaves the Padres as the only team without a manager. So,
Yeah.
all right. So, you guys have been listening for almost 45 minutes now. Did you notice something that we didn't do so far today? We always start with This Week in Baseball. We've not done that yet. We're trying something a little bit new. So we're going to do This Week in Baseball now, kind of here at the end of the pod, and we're going to end with that, I think. What do you think?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So the biggest thing that's happening this week, all of the awards are being handed out. We have Rookie of the Year, Manager of the Year, and Cy Young that have all been announced. The Cy Young was announced all of 2 hours ago, I think. And then the MVPs will be tomorrow. So, Gowie, what is your 30-second take on Rookie of the Year, Corbin Carroll, Gunnar Henderson?
Yeah, so this is the flashing sign for teams to promote your prospects early because they might win Rookie of the Year and you might get nearly a first round draft pick out of it, and you get the amazing player for the next like long half decade plus.
Yep.
So do
While
it.
also making it to the postseason and the World Series in the case of the Arizona Diamondbacks.
Yep.
So, yeah. So I don't think there was any question that these two were going to win the Rookie of the Year. Like there were some other fantastic rookies. Kodai Senga in the National League, he got quite a few votes. In the American League, I believe Tanner Bybee was actually second. Tristan Casas being third. Trying to think who the
James
other.
Outman maybe.
Yeah, James Outman was second in the NL. But really, I think Kodai Senga probably is maybe the next guy after Carroll and Henderson, at least to me. So, yeah. Then on Tuesday we had the managers of the year announced, and that is Skip Schumacher, first year manager for the Miami Marlins, and Brandon Hyde in his third year, fourth year, third year.
I think it's longer than that, right? It's like 5 years,
I don't
6 years
think so.
maybe.
Is it?
I think it is
Oh, well,
because
Brandon
he's been there
Hyde for
like
the Baltimore Orioles.
Yep.
So, any thoughts on that?
I don't like manager of the year because I don't know what makes a good manager really. Like this award's just like which team was really surprising to me.
Well,
Like I don't know. It doesn't
so
matter to me.
the BBWA agrees with you. They also don't know what makes a good manager because Skip Schumacher had 8 first place votes, 8 second place votes, 8 third place votes, and there were like nine of the 15 managers in the National League were like within like 10 points of each other in the standings, and Skip just happened to lead in points. Like I don't even think he led in first place votes. I think he just led in points.
There were
Brandon,
literally people that didn't even have him on the ballot, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
there were 6 people that didn't have him on the ballot. Brandon Hyde, on the other hand, I think was nearly unanimous. Like, I say nearly. Kevin Cash got some votes, and
I think
Bruce
Bochy
Bochy
finished
got
second,
some
right? Yeah.
votes. So, let's see. Then today was the first of the big two, and that is the Cy Young. So, your Cy Youngs in the American League, you got Garrett Cole, and in the National League, you have Blake Snell. So, Garrett Cole, hands down, made complete sense kind of from the beginning of the year to the end. I think he kind of controlled that one, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy that he got it because he was definitely the most deserving pitcher just because of like wire to wire. He was very, very good this year, and he seems like it's like surprising that he's never won the Cy Young before. And obviously, he came very close in 19. He was edged by his teammate Verlander, but like it's it's not surprising that he won it. He's a great pitcher and one of the best of this generation.
I need to grab my charger for my laptop real quick. But Blake
I'll
Snell
talk about
for
Blake
the
Snell.
Blake Snell for the National League.
Blake Snell had one of the weirdest Cy Young seasons ever because he started out kind of rough, and if you look at like the service level numbers from basically mid May to the end of the season, you're like absolutely wowed because his ERA was like 1.23 or something, and outwardly it looks like the guy just dominated from that point on, and in other ways, it's like, how did this guy do what he did? Because he literally had the highest walk rate of any Cy Young pitcher ever. So you called Blake Snell dominant, and yeah, he's dominant sometimes, but other times he's like extremely like wild, and it's like a struggle for Blake Snell. How does the guy do it?
He's Jekyll and Hyde is what he is.
Yeah, yeah, and it's like from batter to batter, even too, from pitch to pitch. You never know what you're gonna get. Um, I love Blake Snell. He's a great
Life's
guy,
like
and
life's like a box of chocolates, Gotham. You never know what you're gonna get.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Blake Snell Cy Young seasons are like a box of chocolates. But the fun fact with Blake Snell winning, though, he's the 7th person to ever win the Cy Young in both leagues.
That's
So,
pretty cool. Yeah,
yeah. So kind of a rare feat there. Very cool thing for him. Really, really happy for Snell. That's also going to help get him paid.
yes, yes.
So, all right. So there's kind of 2 more things that we've got on our agenda. We're going to go with the one that's gonna get me angry first, and then we'll kind of cool off with a opinion question for Gotham here. So I believe the owners are voting on the A's relocation tomorrow potentially. Um, it's expected to pass. This is according to Evan Drellich of the Athletic. It's expected to pass, even though there are multiple owners that are questioning the viability of this plan. Like, if the viability of just the A's moving to Vegas, the viability of getting the stadium in Vegas, like, they don't even know that this is reasonable. And yet they're going to pass it. And there's actually a plan in Oakland, and just nobody's looked at it, and no one is willing to admit that there's actually a reason to stay. But I think you were telling me earlier that John Fisher was talking with some
He's
like
talking with
fan.
protesters. Yeah,
Yeah, he was talking with
there are people
protesters.
protesting this move, and he literally, direct quote, he said, "It's been a lot worse for me than you," and like that is just the most like that.
Short-sighted.
There's probably a reason this guy like doesn't talk to the media if he's saying stuff like that gets out. I mean,
It's
that's
kind of
just
hard to talk when
terrible.
your head's so far up your ass. Let's be real.
Yeah, it's such a bad look. And for like I hate to go down this path, but like guy was born with like a silver spoon in his mouth. Like he's everything he's ever done in his life has been because of like the wealth that he's had to start with. And he's never really had like any success in business or anything. It's like
And I would like to point out, so granted, this is his mommy and daddy's company, but The Gap and Old Navy. John Fisher's money has all came from low quality products. Old Navy clothes last about 6 months, and then they have holes in them, and you got to replace them, but they're really cheap. That's kind of exactly what he does with the A's. Like, this is not the team that you want in Vegas if you're MLB. If you want a team in Vegas, be my guest. Do it. Build a stadium there, get a new owner. Do not put this unpolished turd in Vegas.
yeah.
It doesn't make any
And
sense.
like yeah, and we skipped this one earlier, but like R.I.P. Peter Seidler because he's the way ownership can go right, and he's like kind of being remembered now as a guy that like was such a good person, and he actually did a lot for baseball too. Was exactly what fans would have like exactly what the perfect owner looked like, in my opinion, as a guy that's putting the baseball in front of the next dollar that they're gonna make. He didn't really care because what's a little fluctuation here and there in in your quarterly profits or whatever. Like Fisher is the exact opposite of Seidler.
Yeah. Fisher is so remember in the movie Moneyball, uh, which Fisher wasn't the owner for that team,
Nope,
was he?
nope, no, he
Okay.
was not.
So in the movie Moneyball, the players have to pay for their soda. When David Justice gets traded over from the Yankees, he was just completely astounded by that fact. Later in the movie, Billy Beane had negotiated in a trade that I don't remember which team it was, but they were going to stock the vending machine and it was going to be free to players. I Jeff Fisher, John Fisher.
Yeah.
John Fisher is the type of guy that would make that trade for someone else to stock it and still charge the players for the soda.
Charge
That's
double.
how, yeah, charge double. That's how greedy this man is. And I hate him. And I want him out of the league, and I want them to vote no on this tomorrow, even though they're not going to, even though they don't believe in the viability of the plan. So why vote yes? If you don't think it's viable, why vote yes?
I do not understand.
I don't either. It's not going to make them more money if it's not viable. Force them to sell. Get someone else who's smart to come in and do this.
Yep.
All right, that's me being upset about the A's again. So we'll move on to the final note here, and that is that the competition committee, which is made up of um, oh shoot, it's Theo Epstein's brainchild essentially, but they have proposed reducing the pitch clock with runners on base from 20 seconds to 18 seconds for 2024, which it's just a proposal. The players are basically going to get to say yes or no. I'm guessing they're going to say no. But what's your thought on this, Gowie? I've got a pretty
Yeah.
strong opinion on it, but
I mean, I'm guessing they looked at how many seconds were left on average for pitchers with runners on base for this season and said, most pitchers are going by the time there's 2 seconds left on the clock, and this is not going to be a huge change. And they probably calculated how many minutes it might save them, and said it's really not going to affect gameplay in a huge way. So go ahead and do it. I personally saw how fast that I adjusted to the pitch clock. I don't think another 2 seconds with runners on base is going to make much of a big deal to me.
see, I don't think it's going to be a big deal to me. I think it will be a big deal to some of these pitchers. Like the reason that it's longer with runners on is so that you could kind of take a second, think through your pitch a little bit more, and then you can actually check on the runner and go. And so cutting it down by another 2 seconds and essentially having that not really that much longer than the 15 seconds for just no one on. Why not just have a consistent 15-second pitch clock at that point? What's the point of having two different levels with a runner on if there's not like an actual noticeable difference for a pitcher to take a deep breath and then throw his pitch? Like step off the mound, get some rosin, then throw your pitch. Like it doesn't really seem to make sense to me given the fact that like going from 44 seconds for some of these pitchers down to 20 with runners on, that made a huge difference in the runtime of games. I mean, we cut what, 15, 20 minutes over the course of a full game this year?
25 minutes.
25 minutes. Cutting it 2 seconds with runners on isn't really going to cut the game time that much. Like
Yeah, but once again, it
why
goes back
reduce
to
the pitch
why
clock? Like
it goes back
25
to what
minutes is
their
substantial.
reason,
This
right?
is like 30 seconds though. maybe over the course of a game. Like,
I mean, maybe it's longer than that. I feel like
maybe a minute and a half, but like it's only
minutes.
2 seconds per pitch. Like it's not going to cut it that much.
Yeah, I think it goes back to like the real reason, right? It's not necessarily the time, it's the pace. And I don't know, like I also go back to what I said first, that it's 2 seconds. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah, so then it doesn't matter the other way either.
So
Like,
then
because
you shouldn't have a strong opinion on it either way.
no, I think that there are going to be some pitchers where it's going to cause more issues, and I realize that we said that with the pitch clock in general. That was kind of one of
Everyone
the
got used
arguments.
to it. Yeah.
Yeah, but I still feel like there's a point of diminishing returns, and I feel like 20 seconds is probably at that point. Like the returns.
Well, you don't know until you try it, right? You don't know what the limit is.
Yeah, that's true. But I don't know. I just think it worked. We had it for 1 year. Let's have it for a second year and then think about changing it. Let's just let me get used to this fully first.
Let's just not change the rules every year. That'd be great.
Yeah. So maybe that's my biggest problem, is that it just seems like we're changing rules every single year. It's like let's pick something that we like for a little bit, and then we'll change it in like 2 years.
Yeah, and even if that's a good point. Like it's not something that we hated. There's no like major need for this change. So like why make it? Why not just collect some data and see what we find out first?
Yeah. Like there's other ways that you could increase viewership over gaining another 2.5 minutes per game. 2.5 is not substantial enough people will notice. 30 minutes, absolutely. So that's kind of my take on that matter. All right. Anything else that you want to talk about before we go ahead and end it for today?
I don't think so. This was fun. I'm glad we did it. I'm glad we're back.
Yeah. So we will be back next Wednesday. No, because I will be on an airplane. So we'll have to figure something else out. Probably so we'll let you guys know what our next pod is going to be. We'll definitely be on the 29th of November after the Thanksgiving holiday. So keep an eye out on the Twitter, and we'll let you know there. Thank you very, very much for listening, as always, and have a fantastic rest of your night. If you enjoy the podcast, please subscribe on your favorite podcasting app or YouTube to make sure you don't miss any future episodes. Join the conversation on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Getaway Day Pod. If you enjoy card collecting, check out our sister YouTube channel at Getaway Day Cards.